Hey there, friends. Taylor here. I'm so excited about this new, fresh episode of Talking Shizzle today. I get to sit down with Jamie Trull, who is just an amazing woman, a female entrepreneur, and she has a new book coming out called Hidden Profit. She is the founder of Power in Numbers, and she helps small business owners find hidden profit that's just hiding under the rug, which we all have. And she's just a master at helping people implement really simple best practices for their finances so that they can run a profitable and purpose-driven business. So I hope you really enjoy this episode. I'm really excited about this season. We are just getting started. We really want to focus on helping you figure out how to grow your business. And so I'm excited about this season where we're going to be bringing on a lot of cool entrepreneurs and people like Jamie who can help you figure out how to do it with getting your numbers right. All right. Hello, Jamie. How are you doing today? Yeah, I'm excited about this conversation, and I want to just jump right into it with you. So you're the founder of Power in Numbers. You have a book that is about to launch. It's right around the corner, Hidden Profit. You do a lot of work with helping small businesses and entrepreneurs really get a wrangle on their finances and figure out how to find hidden profit, but also how to take profit and have it fuel your purpose. So there's a lot there. I want to get in it. There's a lot there. I'm really excited about talking to you about this. But first, let's get going with just tell me why you even started your business in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, there's a long story, but I will shorten it. That basically, I worked in corporate for a long time. And so I was in corporate accounting. I'm a CPA by background and really was happy in my corporate role. But then I was actually pregnant with kid number 2. And I was actually working myself out of a job. So my job was going away. It was moving to London. So it was either I figure something out or I moved to London, but I also was, 6 months pregnant at the time. So probably not the best time to be moving my entire family overseas. So we opted instead we were in Atlanta at the time, to move closer to home. And I really thought I would end up back in the corporate world, but I'd always kind of had this entrepreneurial bug. And it was really mostly about freedom. I think that's the reason a lot of people, and especially moms, choose this life, is because it gets harder. I had a toddler and a baby. And so just, what the reality of that was, I wanted a life that was, what I thought would be easier to manage, which is funny now thinking about it. It is in some ways, in other ways, not as much. But I think it started with, okay, what can I do that can help people from home, right? How can I actually build something that makes money for our family from, the confines of my office? And so I started working one-to-one first with business owners to help them with their finances, mainly as a virtual CFO. So I'm really big on the strategy side of numbers. I can talk taxes, I can talk bookkeeping, but I love financial strategy, how to be more profitable in your business, right? And so that's what I helped business owners with. And then kind of along the way, figured out how much I loved teaching. I was doing it originally just to have a pipeline of clients for my business. And then I really maxed out on the number of clients I could serve. And, I just realized, I could serve a lot more people if I just lean into the teaching element. And so I really went towards becoming a financial educator and doing things like Facebook Live trainings. And then it became YouTube trainings. And now that's my entire business, is just educating small business, primarily women, not entirely, but primarily about their business finances, how to be more profitable. And like you said, to also use that profit to fund the life that you want and the causes that you want, right? So that's really what drives me in the business that I have today.
So you don't do any one-on-one consulting work anymore. You are all like a content creator / educator.
Yep. So now I have group programs and things like that I sell. So that's really where our revenue comes from, those programs. It also comes from various different, we have affiliate relationships with brands that I recommend for things like accounting software, stuff like that. So that's really where we've pivoted towards, is just trying to provide as much value as we can. And it's been really great. It grew really fast. I started the business in 2019 in this way. I pivoted from my one-to-one to being, more of an educator. And it was right before the COVID-19 pandemic happened, right? And so I actually was in a good position because I had pretty much offboarded most of my one-to-one clients by the time the pandemic hit. And so that allowed me to actually pivot my content entirely to helping business owners navigate through COVID. So nobody wants to learn how to be more profitable in their business when their business is shut down. And so that's what grew my YouTube channel so fast, is that I was live almost every day talking about things like PPP loans, tax credits, grants that were available to help businesses through that difficult time. And so that made all the difference. And that also really invigorated me. I look back at that time. I feel very lucky to have been in a place where I could help, like, my skills of going and reading these congressional bills that were coming out and interpreting it. I was the director of technical accounting, so I understood how to read something that was really difficult and then translate it in a way that makes sense to people. So I'm really thankful to have had that opportunity. And that's really, what built my business to begin with. And so now, I just help business owners be prepared for whatever might come to, again, be more profitable in their business, be prepared for things like taxes, and be prepared for, we never know. Hopefully it's not another pandemic, but often there's something, it's, the economy or whatever. There's a million things that can happen. And I just want to help business owners be more prepared for that financially.
Yeah. Wow. What a cool time to make that pivot and be able to find the relevance for yourself and your business and making that pivot right around that time. I think that's really kind of fascinating and interesting and cool that it's worked so well for you.
Yeah.
Because
I was just going to say, we didn't charge anything. At the time, I didn't charge a single thing for any of what I was doing because it felt like more of a calling, and I think that's the dream, right? Sometimes I'm chasing that feeling still, where it was so evident what I was supposed to be showing up and doing. But the knock-on effect of giving, right? When we give of ourselves truly without expectation in return, it comes back in spades. And that is what I've seen in the support for my business. Since then, I think the trust that was generated really has helped. I mean, that's where this book came from, right? This book deal came from the support that was generated during that time. It wouldn't have happened without it. And so I can kind of now see a little bit more of oh, that was the story that was being created in the moment. We have no idea. But looking back, it's really evident how one thing leads to another, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that story. That's such a good story. All right, let's get into the book. Okay, I'm going to read. This is from the opening intro. I'm going to kind of go over here to my notes here real quick if I can get my screens moved around. Oh, gosh. You know how it goes when you got multiple screens on. Okay, so the very opening and the introduction of your book, it states, I own a small service-based business, and I'm embarrassed to even admit this, but I'm so incredibly bad with managing money. I wish I had someone to hold my hand on a monthly basis and tell me my budget, tell me what I can pay myself, and help me out of this mess. I know I'm not dumb, but I just don't get it. That opening line spoke to me so much as a small business owner who has started a bootstrapped business, and I know that it must resonate, and those are probably the types of people and lines that you hear all the time. Why is that who you wrote this book for? Tell me more about why you wrote this book.
Absolutely. So I think that what I've realized in doing this teaching, right? I started out teaching thinking I'm going to teach people strategies, right? That's what I'm going to do. And as long as they have the strategies, they're good to go. And what I realized is there's so much more to talking about finances, talking about money than that, because there's so much that we hold inside ourselves. Again, especially women. I don't think it's uniquely to women, but I do think that women, there's so much baggage there with our own life experience or the things that we've been told or the things we've told ourselves, right, about our own abilities. And it really comes to a head when we start a business and that business starts, picking up and doing well. But then we wonder, like, what are we missing? Am I doing this right? And we start second guessing everything when it comes to the money aspect, and we make it a lot harder than it needs to be. And that's why most of my teaching is just reminding people it's actually, it's math, but it's just basic math. Like, this is like math my third grader could do. And we make it so much harder than that. And we berate ourselves about it. And it brings up so many emotions and feelings. And so part of what I teach is not just here are the strategies, but how do we navigate through these emotions and feelings and these things that kind of keep us where we are, and whatever that is, shame, past decisions, things like that stop us from moving forward. So I really wanted people to see themselves in the book. This is not a book for people who are really good at numbers and are like, oh, I love numbers, right? This is a book for people like, yes, sure, you can get something out of that too if you're a numbers lover, right? But this is a book for people who normally maybe wouldn't pick up a business finance book. They wouldn't be thinking about, oh, I want to read about accounting and finance. It's written in a way that's a lot more relatable and from the heart, right?
I love that. It resonates with me so much because I'm not a numbers person. I'm terrible at math. However, I'm very invested in not going broke. And so, like, when it comes to, I've actually found that finances, while I'm very bad at math and not a numbers person, when it comes to thinking about the strategy of finances for my business, it's actually something that I've come to learn that I actually really like doing. And I'm pretty good at the strategy piece, but it's just a lot of times something that you said is we question, what am I missing? Because it's not my background. I'm a creative. I'm good with words. I can tell you when something looks pretty, and so a lot of times people are starting a business that has nothing to do with finance and numbers. And I think that, like, what am I missing question is something that probably keeps a lot of, especially women, up at night, because I think there are, like, sometimes it is intimidating, and I want to get into this. It can feel intimidating when you think about maybe getting a loan, or maybe you're thinking about, maybe I need to find an investor, but, like, I don't even know how to have those conversations. And I just feel like the bros are going to, like, look down at me and talk down to me, whether they are or not. We, as women entrepreneurs, I think often have that story in our head. And so it just makes you, either refrain from doing that or bumble around. Tell me, am I onto something here?
You are.
How do we deal with this?
Yeah, I think what happens, right, is we minimize, right? And that's a natural reaction. It's kind of a protectionist reaction sometimes of, okay, I'm going to minimize myself and my business. I see this a lot with women, who they will tell themselves, oh, I don't need the money. Like, I'm not doing this for money anyway. It's a badge of honor to not make money. And I think that there is something behind that where it's a worth thing. It's well, if I go after it and I don't succeed, or, and we try to kind of paint money, profit as a negative thing. And I think some of that is our own wiring to know, like, hey, we know money corrupts. We are very well aware of that. We don't want to fall into it. We look at, some of these bros like you're talking about, and we're like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to, like, be hanging out on my yacht and driving my Lamborghini. We're like, ew, gross. Like, that's not the life that we want. But I think the mindset shift there, and this is where it really connects to the purpose. We think that profit is antithetical to purpose, right? We think like, oh, if we're really trying to do something meaningful and make a difference, that means we can't, like, be profitable off of that. That feels gross, right? And you're like, but wait a second. Profit is what fuels the purpose. It is fuel for your purpose. If you are not running a sustainable, profitable company, you cannot make change by, let's say, hiring people and contributing to that family's, economic stability, right? You cannot help more customers and clients because you won't have capacity to be able to do that, right? You can't make a difference. You can't donate the money that you want to donate to the causes that you care about because you're too busy, being a martyr within your business. And it's like, we can make such a bigger difference. The people that strong arm profit and money and finances the most and say, like, I don't need that, I don't want that, those are the people that need to have it. Because guess what? You're going to do something better with it than those who are out there just trying to gobble up as much as they possibly can, right? For their own self. And so I see this so much with women. There are so many statistics, and I talk about this in the book, of how women give back so much more to their families, their communities, all around them. They are economically, like, when women make money, economically, everybody rises. Everybody rises. And that is so important. And yet we're like, no, I don't need it. No, I don't want it. All of that. And it's like, what are we doing here? And so that's one of the things I want to inspire is like, no, we can make money and do good things. And in fact, that can be fuel for the good things that you want to do. Right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, one of my passions behind starting my company was to create an environment people liked working in. And so I have to keep making that work so that these people who work for me can continue to have an environment that they like. And that's a big part of it,
And pay them well and offer good benefits and all the things that you want to do to care for people, right? Like, we think caring for people is reducing our rates so much that we can barely scrape by. But really, what if we charged what our product or service is actually worth and then utilize that again to care for people in other ways? Like, it doesn't have to be a sacrifice in order to do that. There is like a win-win-win solution. And, I know you talk a lot on this channel about like nonprofits and things. And I think people think that the only way to like truly have a business with purpose is like it needs to be a nonprofit. And we're currently in my company in the works. And so we'll have to talk about this offline, Taylor, because I need some help. But we're working on creating a nonprofit arm of the business. But the business will fuel it, right? It will be the fuel for the good we want to do. And that will be a sufficiently profitable business because that's how we're going to make that change, right? And we're not hopefully going to have to even rely on donors and things like that. We are going to fuel the business with what we are doing commercially in a for-profit business. And so that's just something that I feel I'll get on my soapbox all day about, because I am, people assume like, oh, she talks about money and profit and, that is, we're sacrificing purpose for that. And I completely disagree. I think it's all about, at the end of the day, it starts with.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Yeah, we definitely have to talk more about that. I think that's interesting. And I think that's so cool. When I met another company recently where the company fuels this nonprofit work that they do, and they have a whole nonprofit arm. And I think that's such an interesting model to be able to do good work and not rely purely on donors and contributions like that. So I think that's, we'll talk more. I want to learn more about that. So, okay, let's talk about, I want to know, the book is called Hidden Profit. I'm sure you have a lot. It's a long book. There's a lot of tips you have for people to find hidden profit. If you had to narrow it down to like the top 3 to 5 things that are just basically like hiding under everybody's rug and they don't realize it, where they could find and discover more profit, what would those things be? What are those, what's hiding under the rug?
That's a great question. So I teach what's called the profit levers. So they're basically things, what I want to show people is that they're in more control than you think. I think sometimes we think we're at the mercy of the market or our customers or demand or whatever, right? And there's some element of that that's true, but there's a lot we can control too. And that's where these levers come in. We can go and pull a lever. If things aren't, if we're not as profitable as we want to be, okay, what lever do we need to go and pull? And the one that we typically do, right? The one that we default, like, okay, we're not as profitable as we want. We need to go make more sales. That's like the top one that we go towards. We're like, we just need to hustle harder to make more sales. But if you're not sufficiently profitable off of each and every one of those sales, all you're really doing is working yourself into the ground, right? You're not actually, we're missing an opportunity. So what I tell people is let's leave that one to last. Like that profit lever is a good lever. Fine, when you're just starting out, it is about getting sales. But once you have an established business, now it's about making sure that you're, making as much profit off of those sales as you can. And then we turn on the volume lever again. So what we start with, right? Because again, like profit it's just a calculation. Essentially, it's money in minus money out. It's revenue minus expenses. There's some crazy, what I call accounting funny business in there. We strip all of that down. Don't worry about depreciation, all the crazy stuff your accountant does at the end of the year. Us accountants love to make things more complicated than they need to be. It's just money in minus money out. That's why I say like literally it's an equation my third grader could do. So we have to look at, okay, what are ways to increase money in? Volume's one of them, but what about pricing, right? And that's usually where I tell people to start. We need to make sure that your profit margins are adequate. I think this is hardest for service-based businesses who are solopreneurs because it's hard to value what you specifically are doing. Sometimes we undervalue that. Again, especially as women, we undervalue the work that we're doing. We've done unpaid labor for centuries. We are used to undervaluing ourselves, right? And so we may not be charging what we need to be charging. But I don't subscribe. I think a lot of people are like, charge your worth. Okay, your worth is immeasurable. Like charge the worth of your product or service. That's what we need to figure out. How do we know what that is? Well, we need to figure out what are the costs involved. So that's easier in a product-based business because we know, probably are more aware of what the costs are, and then we add a markup. When we're talking about our time, it's what would we pay somebody else if we had to hire them? So if we had to hire them to do the work, the things that, even if we wouldn't actually hire them, what would we hire someone? What would we have to pay them? If you're getting paid less than that in your business, then that's a problem. You're never going to be able to scale it, right? You're never going to be able to hire anybody to help you because it's going to cost more to hire them than what you were making. That's a pricing problem usually, right? So we need to price in the fact that we should not just be making money for the work we're doing in our business, but also the work we're doing as the investor in our business, as the person who's doing the marketing, the accounting, like all the other things, right? We need to compensate ourselves for that too. And the risk that we're taking by doing all of this, right? So we need to be pricing all of that in.
It's on our credit card at the end of the day,
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We need to be pricing all of that in when we're coming up with our prices. So that's the first thing is figuring out, okay, what is the true cost? How do I figure this out? Let's say you're doing work for a client and, that client is paying you $1,000 right now. But if you hired someone, you'd have to pay them, $1,000 to do the work. Well, that's a problem. Take, what you'd have to pay them and maybe double it. That's like an easy way to kind of do the math and say, okay, well, if I had to pay somebody $1,000 for this work, then I need to charge $2,000. And then you're ready to scale. So pricing is the number one thing I usually tell people to start with and make sure you have profit margins that make sense and are scalable. Number one. The second part, right, is then if we go to costs, that's another piece, right? It's increasing the money coming in and decreasing the money going out. Well, how do we decrease the money going out? It's not just cutting costs indiscriminately because that actually can backfire. I've done that. I once literally to save $12 a month, I cut my scheduling software, which was the stupidest thing because then I spent like 5 hours a month going back and forth trying to schedule meetings. And then I'm like, oh, I'm valuing my time at like $2 an hour, right? If I use that time for something else, could I make more money? Yes. So I went and signed back up for it. So don't just cut things. It's about realizing like what costs are not providing you a return on your investment, right? And that's a difference in how we think about money in our personal lives because our personal life is more, about consuming. Our business is about investing. And when we invest money wisely in our business, in hiring, learning new skills, marketing, things like that, right? Technology to help us work faster. Those are things that provide a return if we're using them wisely. So that's the first place is where are we spending money that it's actually not providing a return? Mm-hmm. Let's cut those or let's figure out how to get a return on them, right? Mm-hmm. So those are kind of the two biggest ones, I'd say, price and cost. There's a lot, we can go deeper into a lot of them, but I think on its face, Once we've done that, now we're priced correctly and our costs, we've cut costs that we don't need. So our margins are better. Now you go and you sell more, right? And now all of a sudden you're making, I don't know, maybe twice as much off of each and every sale that you're making, which means you need to make half as many sales to get to your goal. So it's just kind of using that math, right? That's the strategy piece.
It's simple.
People, it's simple, but it's kind of fun. And there's so many different ways to do it. There's not one way, right? It's not just like one answer. It's playing around with it. And that's the thing that I think makes it fun, when people stop trying to get it right and they start realizing like, oh, hang on, there's a million different options of things I could do. Let me play around with this and see what works. All of a sudden, numbers become more fun because we're not worried about getting it wrong, right? We're not talking about taxes and getting down to the penny. That's your accountant's job. Your job as essentially the CFO of your own business is to see the big picture and to make decisions that are going to help you meet your goals.
There's a couple things that you said. One, I'm glad that you are kind of saying sales comes, trying to turn on volume and sales comes later. And I honestly think that makes so much sense, because honestly, just doing more sales is actually one of the hardest things. Those other things that you mentioned are way easier. So looking at your pricing, you can do that yesterday. And then going through and doing cost-cutting measures, that's also easy to do. Take a whole Friday and literally go through everything that's appearing on your credit card and say, why am I using this? Do I need this? Yes, no, and then sales, because sales is the hardest part of that equation. It is the hardest thing to get new people through the door versus doing those other things first. I also think that pricing, tell me what you think. I think pricing is sort of I think it can always be an open discussion. I think the market evolves. I think buyer behavior evolves. And so for me, I probably look at our pricing a few times a year and really pause and think about it. And we'll shift and we'll say let's just change it and try it. Because you can always change it again. It's not set in stone, but maybe do you feel like people feel like it's set in stone?
1,000%. We overanalyze it. We think we can't change it going forward. When we know we need to change it, we are afraid to, right? We're afraid of how people are going to react. Things like that. We get so in our heads about it. Most of the time, they don't react at all, right?
I know.
We make it such a big deal. And
every once in a while, you get someone who's like, hey, I noticed your pricing changed, but rarely.
Yeah. And we have lived through the last several years a significant increase in cost, right? So whether, again, that's more evident in a product-based business where you're oh, shoot, now it's cost me double to actually get the things that I'm selling. Some people still waited to increase their prices because they keep thinking that deflation is going to happen. Let me tell you, historically, deflation pretty much never happens, right? It never goes back. Inflation may slow, but it's never going to go backwards. There may be some certain categories depending, but most of the time it is only going one way. So if we're waiting for things to quote unquote normalize, you're going to be waiting a long time. And in the process, you're cutting into your profits. So I think what you're doing about assessing that regularly, Taylor, most businesses don't do that. And so that's a great practice to get into, to just say, how are we doing? And even if you are, right, a service-based business and you don't have employees, again, the cost of the employees that you would have to hire is going up too, right? So we need to be exactly. So that's where it's, again, if you want to keep your business scalable, you have to increase your rates as well, even when it's just you. And the things that you're buying in your life are getting more expensive. So you need to be making more just to kind of stay at the same level you were at. So those are some of the traps we can fall into with this. But if we're paying attention to it, and there are ways you can, do pricing increases. You can do them stair step. You can do them for new people, right? I love to try out new pricing on new people. I leave, everybody else, let's not touch it right now.
Yep.
Let's do new pricing on new people. Let's see if it's still viable. Are we still making, our sales goals, our profit goals? If yes, okay, now how do we do this in a way that feels good for maybe our existing customers or clients, right? You can do it however you want to. But I think it is important to do. And even if there is backlash to begin with, remember it calms down, right? And then eventually you're going to be doing better off for it. And you're going to have more money to reinvest and grow your business. So I think it's really important. And this isn't about like price gouging. It's about charging what you need to charge in order to have a profitable business. Right?
Yeah. And if you go up and people stop buying, you can go back down. I mean, that's something that I've experienced is like at one point we raised our prices and then less people started buying. And then we were like, okay, maybe that's the market telling us like it's too much. We lowered them a little and we started selling again.
Right. It's time to find that happy medium, because sometimes, sure, right, most of the time, if you reduce your prices, you'll get less sales. Just if nothing else changes, you increase your prices, you'll get less sales, right? However, you still may be making more money overall, and then you're working less hard for more money, which is kind of the point. So I always caution people to say it's not just about like, yes, your sales might decline, but what's your profit doing? And that's really the key to it. Now, if it falls more, then that's where we need to reassess. Okay, hang on, like where's the happy medium where we can meet the market where it's at, right? Where what we're charging meets demand and it works.
Yeah. And that's more, it is kind of complicated and you do have to sort of like make a few adjustments here and there and stuff is because, we've done it a few times. All right. I've got a big, deep, maybe somewhat existential question for a business owner. How do we determine what we pay ourselves? So let's just take the scenario. You started a business as a solopreneur, you grow, you start having employees, you start wondering, what do I pay myself? Do you have like a formula or a way of determining that? I mean, it probably seems maybe it's kind of a stupid question. Like, I don't know, like look at your expenses and what you want and all of that. But like maybe there's a methodology. And I think probably some business owners, I know I have been guilty of this myself, is like, they don't pay themselves or they pay themselves way too little.
Yeah. Yep. The first thing is to make it a practice to pay yourself regularly, right? And it's going to depend, I'm not going to get into the differences based on like what type of entity you are and how you pay yourself, whether it's payroll, draws, regardless of all of that. I do think that, one of the things I teach in the book is a method called profit planning. And it's really about, okay, now that we've optimized our profit and found that hidden profit, maximized our profit, what do we do with it? Like where do we put this? Do we reinvest it back into our business? Do we save for the future? Do we pay it to ourselves? Like what do we do with this profit? Obviously we need to save for taxes. Do we save it for emergencies? What do we do? And it's really all of those things. And the percentage that you're going to put to each of them. So my profit plan, it's basically a acronym. So it's, the pay yourself is the P, R is rainy day. So saving for a rainy day, that's your emergency fund. The O is opportunity, reinvesting intentionally back into your business. The first F, my profit plan has two Fs. It's a whole thing. The first F is future. So that's, paying down debt, saving for retirement, things like that you're trying to do for your future. The second F, and why profit planning has two Fs, is fun. So we need to put aside some money for fun. I think that helps motivate us. We make more money when we know a percentage of what we make is going towards that European vacation we're trying to save for or whatever. The I is for impact. That's causes that you care about, right? And the T is for taxes, because we need to do that. So not necessarily in that order, but those are all the things that we need to decide where, what's most important to us right now. So if you're in a place where you're like, I just need to maximize my paycheck right now, a lot of that after the taxes piece, right, probably is just going to go right into your paycheck. If you're in a place where you're like, you know what, I'm trying to save up for I want to retire in the next 5 years. Well, you might be putting a ton of that into your future bucket, right? If you're like, I want to grow my business, that is the biggest priority right now, even if it means sacrificing a little bit of the money that I'm making today, put it back into your opportunity fund and intentionally reinvest to grow your business. So it's not a one size fits all answer. It's sitting and it changes. My profit plan has changed over the years, right? Right now, I'm in a place where I'm saving for a down payment on a new house that we want to build. We really want to build our dream house. So I have changed it around where, I am taking more out of the business right now than I was. A couple of years ago, I was putting a ton into my opportunity fund to grow it. So we can change it. And I think that there's an agency in that. There's not one right way. So many, financial gurus and people are like, this is the way to do it. And these are the percentages. We're all different people with different businesses, different dreams, different goals. So you do have to look at, what do I want? What are my goals right now in this moment? And how can I then use my profit to meet those? And then we kind of divide it up based on a percentage. So every month I do my profit plan allocations and I move money around. I use Relay Business Banking, which has the ability to open up multiple accounts. So I can just put them in there and segregate the money, which I think is great. Or you can just use a spreadsheet, whatever you want to do. But it's helped me to then be able to make very clear progress towards my goals. And then things like giving, it's not an afterthought. It's like, no, we set aside 10% of our profits for causes we care about. So that it's already sitting there, ready to be given. I'm not having to take from myself. It doesn't feel like I'm taking anything from me to do that. Right.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I have a similar thing where it's like several bank accounts where you can move and things around and stuff. And one thing I'll say I have learned is always make sure that there's money in the tax bucket before the other stuff.
Yep. And that's typically, we have the tax piece, that percentage your accountant can tell you, or you can use last year's or whatever. That one you probably want to not play around with too much. But after that, let's say that's 20%. Well, then you have the other 80% of your profit. Where does that go? So we can kind of figure out what are the musts first, but don't put paying yourself last. Don't make it the what's left over, because there won't be anything, right? If we're making it the leftovers, guess what? There's not going to be any. We have to be intentional to put that in there. And a lot of people use profit first. I don't know if that's what you use, Taylor. Profit first is a common methodology for doing this. The only thing I don't like, I like the methodology, and it's kind of putting things in different bank accounts. However, mine is different in that we have things like, saving intentionally for reinvestment. That's really important. I think that's key to growing a business. Otherwise, you might, again, accidentally shoot yourself in the foot if you're so focused on just maximizing profit today and not thinking about the future. I also think things like the fun fund and the impact fund become really motivating. So I really feel like my business makes more money, more than what I even put in that fun fund and impact fund, because of the extra motivation I have to make more money to fund those things, right? So we're in control of our how much we make. So if money doesn't motivate you, what does? And make that a goal.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important. And also it's twofold. It's a motivator, but it's also then when you're doing that regularly, because you're making enough money to be able to have your fun, you're just more refreshed at running your business. So
exactly.
It's the circle of life.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I like that you called that out.
And you get more creative.
You do.
If I'm super close, if I'm like, oh, I want to book this vacation, but I don't have enough of my fun fund yet, right? the very first fun fund we did was actually during COVID, so we couldn't go anywhere. But I was trying to get my husband on board with I'm going to be working a lot. It was, there's just a lot going on. I'm doing a big launch and of course he's like, oh man, that just means I got more to deal with the kids and all of this. And so that's actually where the fun fund was really born. That second F came in because I was like, okay, well, what if 5% of the profits from this launch we put towards a hot tub for our back patio, which he has always wanted. And I'm the frugal one. I'm like, that's ridiculous. We don't need a hot tub.
It's not. I will tell you, I have one.
It is amazing.
And I saved up for mine, and I'm so glad I did.
Right? And that was the first thing. And all of a sudden, my husband was like, can I go to the grocery store? What do you need? What can I help you with? Can I make you some coffee? And I'm like, yeah, sure. It just became fun. And I feel like that when I would have probably been, when the energy started to wane, right? If anybody who does launches, it's like you're high energy and then it's like, oh man, towards the end, you're really going downhill. That was the thing that propelled me to keep going. I was like, okay, we're so close. Let's keep, making this happen. And I think that's why I highly recommend it. If you control your income, put some fun things in there. Like, y'all, we can enjoy life today. I am very much a saver. I get it, but we got to enjoy our life today. Like, otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, totally. All right, Jamie, is there anything that you feel like we didn't cover that you really want people to know about you or your book, or just how to feel better? Going back to that quote at the beginning, I know I'm not dumb, I just don't get it. Like, anything that we left out today?
I think the thing that I like to tell people is it doesn't have to be perfect to be useful, right? And I think we get stuck in perfection with things like finances, where we're like trying to make sure we're doing it right. And like I've said, there's so many different ways to do it. I'm not talking about, again, like your taxes is a whole different story, but how you make decisions in your business, how you look at it, there's so many different ways to do it right. And use this as permission to go figure out what's going to help you, right? The key, when people ask me, what should I be looking at in my business? I say, well, what's going to help you make decisions, right? What numbers, like, you don't need to look at numbers if they're not helpful to you. What do you wish you knew and had access to all the time to make decisions? Those are the things to look at and make a system that allows you to have access to that information. And so I think we get so caught up in perfection that we just kind of bury our heads in the sand. Have some fun with it, right? It does not have to be perfect to be useful. Like, it's fine to make estimates. It's fine to make educated guesses. Like, all of that is on the table. That's actually how you're supposed to do it. That's how big business does it. I've been there, right? We make assumptions all the time. Don't be afraid to do that. So that would I want people to feel that agency over it and not feel like there's one way to do something. Make it work for you. And if it doesn't work, it's not you, it's the system. Change the system, try something else.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, tell us, your book comes out October 21st.
October 21st. So, but you can pre-order it before that as well. So we actually have some bonuses available too, whether you're pre-ordering it. We'll have some bonuses actually after the book is out as well, but just go to jamietrull.com/hidden profit and you can find that.
I love it. And is that the best way for people to find you, jamietrull.com? Any other places you want to share?
jamietrull.com, or if you want to go subscribe to my YouTube channel, it's just Jamie Trull, Trull with a U. And that's where I am doing, free financial information all the time, every single week on YouTube. So that's a great place to make sure you're following.
I love it. Go follow this woman on YouTube. She's got a great channel, a lot to share, and I really have enjoyed getting to know you. I appreciate so much the conversation and also the topic. I think it's just really is one of those things. People get very uncomfortable talking about money. And as business owners, we get very uncomfortable thinking about money. And it's something that we have to talk about and we have to think about. The more you avoid it, the worse it gets. So I really I love talking to you and I appreciate it. And I cannot wait to finish your book. I got it a little bit started, but I haven't finished it. And I really look forward to it. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Taylor. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, friends, if you are thinking about starting a business or you are looking for a little bit of extra help with figuring out how to get your business and your brand and your marketing out there, hit us up at creativeshizzle.com. And until next time, go get your good shizzle done.